Project 3! Are you ready for Easter and Semana Santa? Me too. Okay, so today we are going to look at the back of the book. Look at page 86. We're going to look at a reading, okay, called Touching the Void, a true story about some climbers. Okay, now before we listen and read the story, we're going to look at some of the vocabulary that you'll see in the story. Alright, so I have here the vocabulary from the story. Alright, so we'll start with west face. Okay, now this is the mountain they are climbing. The west is here. Look, north, south, east and west. So the west face of the mountain is this side of the mountain. Now, base camp is here. Base camp is the camp at the start of the climb. Okay? To be at base camp is easy. When you go more than base camp, it's more difficult. The next is snowstorm. Fairly obvious. A storm with lots of snow. If there is a lot of snow in a snowstorm, you can't see anything. The top of the mountain, boop, is here. If you are a climber and you get to the top of the mountain, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah, it's definitely good. Next is rope. Rope is the material they use to connect the climbers. If you look in your book, this is the rope. Okay? Next is lower. To lower something is to make it go down. To lower the pen, for example. The next one is hop. Hop is the same as jump, but with one leg. Hop, hop, hop. Crawl is when you walk on your hands and knees, like a baby, to crawl. Cliff is the side of the mountain. Don't fall off the cliff, it's very bad. And finally, slide is when you move like this, with this action, okay? Usually because of snow or ice, okay? So now we have some of the vocabulary from the story. We're going to listen, read, and look at exercise 1. Okay, in exercise 1 there are 3 people: Simon Yates, Joe Simpson, and Richard Hawking. And there are also 3 actions. So A stays at base camp. Remember, this is base camp. B cuts the rope. This is the rope. And C breaks his leg. All right. So we're going to listen to the story, read the story, and can you match the people with the actions in the story? Okay, are you ready? Then let's listen.
Page 86, Unit 5, Exercise 1A. Touching the Void, a true story. The year is 1985, and 3 young climbers, Simon Yates, Joe Simpson and Richard Hawking, are planning to climb the Cielo Grande mountain in Peru. The mountain is 6,344 meters high. They're going to climb the mountain's west face. Nobody has ever climbed this before. Richard stays at the base camp, while Joe and Simon set out to climb the mountain. There's a snowstorm on the way up, so the journey takes a long time. But on the third day, they reach the top. They've done it. They start to climb down again. It's slow and difficult, and then disaster happens. Joe falls and breaks his right leg badly. He can't walk. Now Simon has to lower Joe down the mountain on a rope. He lowers Joe 100 meters and then another 100 meters. It's very slow and painful. Then another disaster happens. There's a snowstorm. Simon can't see very well with all the snow, and he lowers Joe over a cliff. Joe is hanging in mid-air. He can't climb back up the rope, and Simon can't pull him up. Then Simon also starts to slide down towards the cliff. He decides he must save himself, or they will both fall over the cliff and die. So he takes his knife and cuts the rope. Joe falls down the cliff into a deep hole in the ice. By now it's dark. Simon digs a hole in the snow and goes to sleep for the night. The next day he looks for Joe, but he can't find him. He thinks that Joe is dead. So he climbs down the mountain to the base camp. Joe, however, is not dead. He finds a way out of the hole. He's got no food or water, but for 3 days he hops and crawls down the mountain. Finally, he can't go any further. It's dark and he can't see anything. He lies down in the snow and falls asleep. Simon and Richard are still at the base camp, but they're going to leave the next day. So even if Joe reaches the camp, there will be nobody there. But then a very strange thing happens. Joe wakes up. He can smell something bad. At first, he can't understand it. Then he realizes it's their toilet. He's near the base camp. He shouts, "Help! Help!" Richard and Simon rush out of their tent and find him. They can't believe it. Joe has survived.
Wow, what an incredible story. So, do you need a bit more time to match the names and the actions? No problem. Press pause, and when you're ready, press play. Okay? Go. Right, what do we have then? So, Simon Yates, what happened to him? Yeah, he cut the rope. Number 2, Joe Simpson. C, he breaks his leg. And number 3, Richard Hawking. A, stays at base camp. So it's an incredible story. 1 person is at base camp and 2 climb the mountain. Do they get to the top? Yes, they get to the top. Woohoo, they're fantastic. But coming down, they have 2 big problems. Number one, Joe breaks his leg. Not good to climb down a mountain. And number 2, there is a snowstorm, so they can't see anything. Joe goes over the cliff, and Simon has to cut the rope. So Joe falls down the hole, and Simon goes to base camp. Here, poor Joe, it takes him 3 days to hop and crawl, and he arrives near base camp. It's such an incredible story. Did any of the men die? No, they all survived. Okay? So, your homework for Semana Santa is to have a look at exercise 2. You need to complete the sentences about the story. We'll do number 1 together. So number 1, they want to climb the west face of Sierra Grande because, okay, look at paragraph 1. They're going to climb the mountain's west face. Nobody has ever climbed this before. So the answer for number 1, they want to climb the west face of Sierra Grande because nobody has ever climbed this before. Okay? So for the 8 sentences, can you complete them from the story and send them to me? Okay? And remember, in the description is the link to the extra resources for Project 3. Alright? Enjoy Semana Santa, and I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye!